Imagine a morning when the familiar world loses its colors. What captivated and inspired yesterday seems bland and lifeless today. Hobbies that once ignited a fire in your soul now only elicit yawns, turning into a monotonous duty. Conversations, once engaging and meaningful, sound like echoes of empty phrases, devoid of any sense. Even entertainment, be it movies, music, or social events, fails to awaken that spark of joy that once flickered. In desperate attempts to escape the oppressive feeling, a person seeks salvation in new experiences, hoping that something, anything, can fill the void. But alas, nothing brings the long-awaited satisfaction. The growing sense of anxiety and alienation makes you wonder, is this all there is? If you have ever experienced something similar, know that you are not alone. This experience is more common than it may seem at first glance. But what exactly lies behind this state? Could it be just ordinary boredom or fleeting fatigue? What if it's something much bigger, something that requires close attention? What if this feeling is not an annoying obstacle to be ignored, but an important message that needs to be deciphered? Unraveling this question can be the key to understanding yourself and your place in this world. Today, we intend to delve into the essence of this phenomenon, leaving behind superficial observations and immersing ourselves in the depths of the human soul and philosophical reflections. What makes life lose its appeal? What invisible forces come into play when nothing brings the joy it once did? And most importantly, how to break free from the grip of this state and reconnect with meaning, inspiration, and purpose. In conclusion of this study, we will discover a profound truth, capable of transforming not only our emotional state, but also our perception of life as a whole. Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, one of the most significant thinkers of the 20th century, devoted a significant part of his scientific activity to the study of human experience. He argued that the feeling of losing the meaning of life is not just a loss of interest in certain activities, but a powerful signal from the depths of the subconscious, indicating a deep disconnect from oneself, from one's true aspirations, and from the innate desire for self-development. It is worth considering how social norms and expectations shape our personality. From an early age, we are taught that happiness is a desirable goal, often linking it to external achievements, such as academic success, a prestigious job, financial independence, and recognition in society. We are conditioned to believe that satisfaction comes from meeting the expectations of others and following a predetermined path. And for a while, this approach may bear some fruit. However, what happens when, despite achieving all the goals set and fulfilling all the points of the life program, a person still feels a crushing emptiness? What happens? When those things that society has convinced us should bring joy and satisfaction no longer evoke any positive emotions. Carl Jung, a prominent Swiss psychologist, hypothesized that such a state is not a sign of life failure or mistake, but rather an invitation, a call to go beyond superficial, fleeting pleasures and embark on a deeper and more meaningful path of self-discovery. This complex and multifaceted process, which Jung called individuation, is a journey to discovering one's true self, freed from the shackles of social expectations, imposed stereotypes, and conditioned beliefs. However, it is worth noting that most people resist this deep and transformative journey. When faced with a feeling of inner emptiness and emotional discomfort, they desperately seek new and more distractions, come up with various hobbies, seek entertainment and vivid impressions, naively hoping to revive the excitement and trepidation they once felt. They are terrified of silence and solitude, because silence inevitably forces them to face the unpleasant truths they have been diligently avoiding. And it is in this courageous confrontation that the path to further growth and development lies. Think for a moment. When was the last time you felt truly alive? not just entertained or distracted from everyday worries, but deeply, sincerely alive, feeling the fullness of being. Can you recall that moment when you felt completely in sync with yourself, when time seemed to dissolve into oblivion, and you were fully engaged in what you were doing, experiencing genuine interest and enthusiasm? When the feeling of engagement in life fades and seems ghostly, it may indicate that previous guidelines and values no longer correspond to the current stage of personal development. The feeling of emptiness that arises is not a negative signal or a personal failure requiring condemnation or suppression. On the contrary, it is a sign of internal transformations and evolution. In the process of human development, discomfort inevitably arises as previous sources of meaning and satisfaction lose their relevance, giving way to the desire for deeper and more meaningful goals. The key question is whether a person is ready to respond to this internal call for change. Before embarking on the search for new sources of inspiration and purpose, it is necessary to carefully analyze the hidden factors that contribute to the emergence of a feeling of disconnection from life. Psychological attitudes, social norms, and even biological characteristics influence the formation of our life experience. Without realizing these forces, a person risks finding themselves in a vicious circle, unsuccessfully trying to find meaning where it no longer exists. The following narrative will reveal these hidden influences and explore the reasons why many people experience a sense of alienation. But more importantly, it will outline a path to finding genuine life fulfillment, going beyond fleeting pleasures and leading to a deep sense of meaningfulness and vitality. Imagine that the oppressive feeling of emptiness is not a curse, but a kind of letter from the hidden corners of the soul announcing impending changes and requiring close attention. However, instead of listening to this inner voice, many prefer to run away from it. They plunge into a whirlpool of distractions, endless entertainment, aimless scrolling through news feeds, and reckless actions, naively believing that constant movement will help them outrun this all-consuming emptiness. But alas, this is a vain hope. Carl Jung, a prominent psychologist, argued that inner emptiness should not be ignored or feared. In his opinion, the feeling of boredom and meaninglessness of life often arises due to detachment from one's own inner world. Jung called this state disconnection from the self, the innermost and truest essence of a person. Modern psychology confirms this concept. Scientific studies show that a lack of personal involvement in what is meaningful can lead to depression, anxiety, and emotional numbness. The mind craves purpose, and when a person ignores their inner call, they fall into a state of stagnation, a kind of limbo where nothing brings true joy and satisfaction. What causes this feeling of detachment from life when many feel a loss of meaning and purpose? The reason lies in the system by which society guides our development. From an early age, we are instilled with the need to follow a clearly defined route, diligently study to get a prestigious job and secure a stable existence. We are encouraged for high productivity, for conforming to generally accepted norms, and for fulfilling prescribed roles. Success is measured by external indicators, such as career advancement or material well-being, rather than by an internal sense of satisfaction and harmony. As a result, we create lives that look attractive from the outside, but feel empty and meaningless inside. At first, we may not even realize this, as the hustle and bustle of life distracts our attention. However, over time, cracks begin to appear in this armor. What used to bring joy and satisfaction gradually loses its appeal. The goals we once strived for cease to inspire and motivate. It begins to seem that something important is missing, but what exactly remains unclear. The famous psychologist Jung believed that this moment of realization is of great importance. It marks the beginning of a deep inner transformation, but only if a person is willing to face the truth and accept the challenge. Many, faced with this inner emptiness, try to find a solution in the outside world. They change jobs, move to another city, or enter into new relationships, hoping that external changes will help them regain their lost sense of meaning. However, in truth, no external changes can solve the problem if its root lies within ourselves. The feeling when the usual joys of life no longer cause the same delight often indicates a more serious problem, an existential crisis. The individual has probably lost touch with their former self, but has not yet realized their new essence. They are at a crossroads, ready for change. But this requires something that scares many: immersion in silence. It is silence that forces a person to face the truth about themselves. She casts aside all distractions and exposes hidden desires, unresolved conflicts, and unrealized opportunities. This process can be painful, but it is necessary to rethink life values. It is no coincidence that Carl Jung emphasized the importance of introspection. He believed that to overcome feelings of emptiness, one must turn inward and ask oneself difficult questions. Who am I outside of my achievements? What brings me true joy, apart from imposed stereotypes? What am I avoiding deep down? Finding answers to such questions is not an easy task, but it is in them that the potential to break out of the vicious cycle of emotional apathy lies. After all, meaning is not a given that we receive from the outside, but the result of our own efforts to create it. And the cornerstone of this process is self-awareness. It is worth considering, when was the last time a person allowed themselves deep self-knowledge? Not just within the framework of professional activities or social roles, but as a unique individual with their own thoughts, aspirations, and dreams. When was the last time they indulged in a thirst for knowledge, doing something solely out of personal interest? One of the sad aspects of modern reality is that people lose this very curiosity. They stop exploring the world around them, get bogged down in monotonous everyday life, which gradually deprives them of enthusiasm, mistakenly taking stability for true satisfaction. But there is a way out. There is an opportunity to regain the lost sense of meaning, to rediscover what fills life with value and significance. This path begins with rethinking one's own position. Instead of fearing inner emptiness, one should learn to see new horizons in it, an invitation to something greater. But what lies behind this metaphorical door? How is it possible to transform stagnation into dynamic renewal, and the feeling of inner emptiness into complete satisfaction? The next section will present concrete steps aimed at restoring the connection with lost meaning and life energy. These steps are not abstract theoretical calculations, but powerful tools for deep personal changes. As a result, the reader will realize that the experienced period of seeming aimlessness can become not the final point, but the most important stage, opening new horizons in life. In every person's life, there comes a period when the surrounding reality seems to lose its brightness and attractiveness. What previously brought sincere joy turns into a monotonous routine. Activities that once aroused genuine interest and enthusiasm begin to seem mechanical and devoid of meaning. At such moments, questions inevitably arise. Why does nothing please me anymore? Why does everything seem so gray and predictable? However, perhaps the key to solving this problem lies not in the external world, but in the depths of one's own eye. Carl Jung argued that experiences associated with feelings of emptiness and alienation do not arise spontaneously. They are a kind of signal coming from the subconscious, which calls a person to further development and self-improvement. He called this process individuation, a unique journey aimed at revealing and realizing one's true potential. But unfortunately, the majority of humanity resists this path of self-knowledge and transformation. People cling to outdated ideas about themselves, to established habits, and to ossified patterns of thinking, even when they have long ceased to be useful and have become a brake on the path of development. Fear of change paralyzes their will, even when the old state brings suffering and disappointment. However, it is worth realizing a simple truth. The feeling of inner emptiness and dissatisfaction with life arises not because of the lack of opportunities for joy and happiness, but because a person has outgrown what once brought them satisfaction. Like a snake shedding old skin that has become cramped and uncomfortable, so a person needs to get rid of outdated versions of themselves, outdated beliefs and habits, in order to free up space for new growth and development. The feeling of discomfort and anxiety that arises in this case is not a sign of something wrong, but a signal, a call to a deeper and more authentic way of life that corresponds to true needs and aspirations. Unfortunately, most people prefer to ignore this inner call. Instead of turning to themselves and understanding the causes of discomfort, they look for external solutions, trying to escape from themselves. They acquire new things, seek thrills and entertainment, surround themselves with distractions, hoping to drown out the inner voice and avoid painful reflections. However, despite all efforts, a sense of dissatisfaction invariably returns, as the root of the problem lies not in the external world, but within the individual. It is worth considering, how often does a person find time for a sincere conversation with themselves, without distractions and external noise? How often do they allow themselves to reflect on what they truly want from life? Not what others expect of them, not what society thinks should bring them happiness, but what genuinely ignites a fire in their soul and fills their life with meaning. For the vast majority of people, the answer will be disappointing, rarely or almost never. And this is where the root of the modern problem lies. In our world oversaturated with information and entertainment, we are constantly subjected to excessive stimulation. Social networks with their endless stream of content, countless forms of entertainment promising instant gratification. All of this continuously occupies our minds, but unfortunately does not bring true nourishment to our souls. All these factors provide fleeting pleasure, which, however, cannot provide lasting and sustained satisfaction. Over time, we become desensitized to these stimuli. What once brought us genuine joy and delight gradually loses its power and significance. The constant stream of distractions dulls our ability to experience genuine, deep joy. As a result, we find ourselves in a vicious cycle, constantly striving for more but feeling less and less satisfied. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung warned against such a passive attitude to life. He argued that true satisfaction and fullness of life come not from external pleasures and entertainment, but from a deep inner transformation of the personality. The more we suppress our deep-seated needs, such as the need for meaning in life, a clear purpose, and authentic self-expression, the more detached and disconnected we become from ourselves and the world around us. And it is this disconnection that gives rise to that oppressive feeling that nothing pleases us anymore and brings satisfaction. How can humanity regain its lost sense of freedom? How to reawaken the extinguished passion for life and the sense of wonder that seemed to have left us? The key to resolving this dilemma lies in conscious effort and purposeful action. If the root of the problem lies in disconnection, in the loss of connection with ourselves, then the solution should be sought in reunification, with our own inner world, with our innermost desires, with what fills our existence with genuine meaning and makes us feel alive. The first step on this path is creating space for silence. At first glance, this may seem elementary, but in today's world filled with distractions, True silence is a rather rare phenomenon. Immerse yourself in silence, become an observer of your own thoughts. Pay attention to what arises in your mind when you are not busy solving pressing problems and are not distracted by external stimuli. It is in these moments of silence that the deepest insights and revelations are born. The second important step is exploring the world without preconceived expectations. Many people are trapped in the belief that every activity should be productive and lead to a specific result. However, such a mindset is detrimental to curiosity and the thirst for knowledge. Instead, allow yourself to explore the world simply because you are interested. Pick up a book on a topic that fascinates you. Try your hand at an activity you've never done before. Follow your curiosity, even if it seems insignificant or frivolous, because it is through such moments of exploration and discovery that we often find what truly brings us joy and satisfaction. In the third stage, it is necessary to delve into reflections on past happiness. One should revive in memory the moments when one felt fully involved in what was happening. What were they doing during those periods? What exactly filled them with a sense of life energy? It often happens that the former sources of joy have not lost their power, but the connection with them has simply been lost. Returning to old hobbies, free from criticism and coercion, can revive the extinguished spark. And finally, a key moment is accepting the inevitability of change. A sense of detachment from life may indicate a readiness for personal growth. Do not resist this process. On the contrary, welcome it. It is necessary to question established beliefs, habits, and priorities. It is important to be open to the idea that previous aspirations may no longer correspond to current needs. Change is not a threat, but a path to a deeper and more fulfilling existence. At this point, a logical question may arise. What if everything listed above has already been tried, but the feeling of being lost does not leave? What if, despite all efforts, emptiness remains? The answer to this question contains perhaps the most important revelation, as there is a fundamental truth about the meaning of life and satisfaction that, once realized, can radically change the perception of reality. It is this truth that will be revealed in the next part of the narrative. There is a secret about the meaning of life that, unfortunately, eludes many. This truth is so fundamental that its comprehension can radically transform a person's perception of their existence. The essence of this truth is that meaning is not something to be discovered, but rather something that a person creates themselves. Countless people spend precious years of their lives searching for meaning, as if it were a buried treasure waiting patiently to be unearthed. They naively believe that sooner or later they will be lucky enough to stumble upon the perfect profession, an all-consuming passion, or a great purpose that will miraculously fill their lives with deep meaning and satisfaction. However, these searches often prove futile and endless, because true meaning is not an external object, but an internal experience born in the depths of the human soul. The eminent psychologist Carl Jung deeply understood this truth. He firmly believed that the ultimate goal of human life is individuation, the process of integrating all aspects of the personality, both light and dark, to achieve wholeness. This wholeness is achieved not by chasing something external, but by fully accepting and revealing one's true self. The more a person is in harmony with their authentic nature, the more fulfilled and meaningful their life becomes. When a feeling of joy leaves a person, one should not think about finding the meaning of life as such, but about how to fill current activities and actions with meaning. This is a crucial step, learning to be a creator of meaning, not a passive waiter for it. One way to do this is through deep engagement in what is happening. In today's world, where superficial interactions prevail, people often skim the surface of things. They skim through books instead of reading thoughtfully, scroll through social media feeds instead of engaging in live communication, and jump from one activity to another without truly immersing themselves in any of them. In doing so, they deprive themselves of the deep joy that comes from genuine presence in the moment. One should ask oneself, when was the last time a person did something fully focusing on it? When was the last time they allowed themselves to be completely absorbed in what was happening? Psychological research shows that the state of flow, moments of deep concentration and engagement, is directly related to feelings of happiness and satisfaction. The more present a person is, the more fulfilling and meaningful life seems to them. Another path to finding meaning in life lies through service and creative contribution to the common good. Often, people feel an inner emptiness when their existence is limited exclusively to their own needs, aspirations, and personal troubles. However, true meaning blossoms when the focus of attention shifts outward, when a person finds ways to benefit something that transcends their own interests. This does not necessarily involve making global transformations on a world scale. Even modest expressions of kindness, the transmission of knowledge, mentoring, or creating something valuable for others can generate a deep sense of purpose. C.G. Jung also emphasized the importance of confronting the unconscious. If a person is haunted by a feeling of detachment from life, the reason may lie in the fact that they are avoiding certain aspects of their personality. There are probably fears, feelings, or desires that have been discarded because they do not correspond to the established image of oneself. However, these repressed aspects do not disappear without a trace. They lurk in the depths of the subconscious, generating a vague sense of anxiety and dissatisfaction. The only way to restore the integrity of the personality is to bravely face these hidden sides. That is why deep self-reflection, psychotherapy, or journaling can be such effective tools. By bringing unconscious thoughts and feelings to the level of awareness, a person regains lost parts of themselves. And the more whole the personality becomes, the more rich and meaningful life becomes. When the usual joys of life cease to bring satisfaction, this does not indicate a lack of meaning in existence. On the contrary, it is a signal of a person's readiness for new, larger-scale challenges and opportunities. This feeling serves as a kind of invitation to personal growth and evolution, encouraging one to break out of outdated lifestyles and move to a qualitatively new level of self-awareness and authenticity. However, such transformation does not happen spontaneously or passively. It requires active engagement and conscious choices. It is necessary to actively interact with the world around us, seek profound meaning instead of superficial entertainment, and create this meaning ourselves without waiting for its miraculous appearance from outside. In this regard, each person should ask themselves, what can I do today to deepen my connection with life? In what area of my activity can I bring more meaningfulness and awareness? After all, the most important truth is that the meaning of life is not something that can be found somewhere outside, but something we create ourselves, step by step, moment by moment. And the power to create this meaning is always within us.